Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another update for you from the brand Seiko. Of course, they were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin, but now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to extremely high end. And in terms of this particular watch, we've actually reviewed a different variant of it, the brushed model on bracelets. But this is basically one of their new Seiko 5 sports field watches. Now, in terms of field watches, some key common characteristics and design language, if you're looking for that classic field watch, of course, you're going to want a more modest size, something with Arabic numerals with a 12 and 24-hour scale. And typically, the classic colors would be either a black or a cream dial. Here you're seeing a bit of a modern reinterpretation, which I'm digging quite a lot. This is your Seiko 5 Sports SRPG31, and that is the international nomenclature, and it's just essentially Seiko's version of, and I should say newest version, because they've been really synonymous with this for quite a few years now. It is pretty much their latest version of an affordable everyday field watch. Now you can get these for $275 from Long Island Watch, so big shout out to Mark over at Long Island Watch for hooking me up with his inventory there, because honestly these are selling out, you know, at pretty decent rates. I do like that they're available in kind of a JDM trim as well as an international trim. It kind of harkens back to the old days of you know, getting a made in Japan version versus an international version of like the SKX. So there's a little bit of fun there. The previous model that I showed was the made in Japan model. This one is going to actually, I think this one actually might say made in Japan on it, but this is actually one of the international units. So it adds a little bit more fun even from that standpoint. I'm actually trying to look at it through the viewfinder, and yeah, it might actually say it. So that's pretty cool. But we'll definitely get it in hand and take a closer look. So let's do that. All right, guys. So let's see. Yes, it says made in Japan. Very cool. So here the difference is going to be that although both models that I previously reviewed said made in Japan, this one will not have a kanji date wheel. But I don't think that's a huge hindrance, because now it gives me more variance between the two models that I have. You'll also notice that this is not on the standard NATO strap that comes with the watch, but instead a really awesome Haveston strap. I did a full review on these straps and did a sneak preview of the watch a little while ago, but I did want to have it on here because it's just such a perfect tone match there. It just really reminds me of that classic British Admiralty Grey, and I think that dial also ties in really well to that in terms of kind of that bluish gray tone. I think it really keys in and looks amazing on here. You also get, with that blasted case, you're gonna be able to match this great blasted hardware from Haveston. So really nice from that standpoint. In terms of the type of strap, this is the Haveston General Service strap. So definitely keep an eye out for these guys. If you are interested in the strap and you were just looking for the right watch for it, or you like this watch but you were looking for the right strap, I think you could be pretty happy with this combination. Dare I say, this is just one of those you know, match made in heaven type combinations. But enough of that. For those of you that didn't watch the original review of the more versatile, I guess you could say, on bracelet brushed black dial model, also had black day and date wheels. So that's another difference. Apart from just the general dial color, here's a little bit about it. It's 39.4 millimeters in diameter, 13.2 millimeters thick, which some of you will be thinking that's pretty thick, but I gotta say, you don't necessarily notice it on the wrist, especially because they break it down. Very thin mid case. You just have a bit of a bezel on both sides, essentially. So it's the middle of that hamburger. But I don't think it wears terribly thick or anything like that. I mean, it wears thin enough to where you put it on a nylon strap or a fabric strap of any kind, that kind of pass through, and it still wears really quite nicely, so I dig that. And then the lug to lug is 48.1 millimeters, so I think it's a nice little size. It's not oversized. I wouldn't consider it like pilot's watch range. It's definitely still, I think, within that sweet spot for a field watch. And then, of course, it does have quite a bit of information on the dial. So if you try to make this much smaller, it would begin to affect, you know, kind of how crowded the dial could look, as well as just some general legibility, which, you know, kind of the whole point of a field watch is for it to be really instantly legible. And some may argue that the way that Seiko did the those numerals there, where they're basically, they have a bit of a brushing that can catch the light and reflect. You know, some might have preferred just standard paint there or loomed numerals, but I have to say, I think it's just a nice touch that adds a bit of an urban flair to the watch, and just makes it a little bit more versatile in general. I think it obviously still does the job in terms, oh, look at the way the light plays with that. It's almost like an Indiglo status there. Bam. Bam. So enough of me playing with that. Let's get into some of the other details. So we do have a non-screw down crown, which is inside, and then on the back, which you cannot see, it is a display case back, but you know, it's a pretty pedestrian Seiko 4R36 in here. So nothing too crazy, but it does the job. Hacks, hand winds, does all that. 6 ticks per second, so it's only going to be 3 hertz. Definitely does the job. And then in terms of that dial, when you really get into the details of it, as you can see, you're going to get those raised and printed indice mix there, brushed and loomed. You're going to get this cool matte gray, and then you also have the day date complication at 3 o'clock. You're going to get black font over white wheels, which I think is a nice point of contrast, although I did enjoy it being blending a bit more with the black on black of the other unit that I purchased previously. So in terms of, you know, how water resistant this is 10 bar or 100 meters. It's not a screw down crown, but 100 meters water resistance is pretty good. Obviously, you're not going to actually go diving with this and go 100 meters. Most people won't dive more than 30 or 40 meters recreationally. But the nice thing is, if this, as long as the crown is pushed in, you're absolutely good to go. So if it rains, you're doing the dishes, you get in a water fight in the summertime, you'll be totally fine. You get this thing sweaty, take it to the gym, fine. Take it for a swim, fine. Again, it's really dependent on the crown being pushed in. So as long as the crown is pushed in, you will pretty much be good to go in any, you know, realistic water situation. So that's pretty nice. You also have 20 millimeter lugs, which does make this very versatile. And it also has drilled lugs, which is great. So you get to have the nice shoulderless spring bars in there. It does come with a Seiko branded 20 millimeter nylon NATO style strap, and you're seeing it here featured on a 20 millimeter Haveston general service strap. So with all that, let's actually get it on the wrist and show you how it wears. All right, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, it wears really, really well. Very nice, extremely sporty, especially on this strap. Really gives it a more premium flair, and again, kind of ties in to kind of that tactical urban style, which I really, really dig, which honestly Seiko has even really kind of dove into kind of the more urban jungle style. So I'm really digging that. I think it ties together well. The tones, the hues, everything plays really, really nicely, and you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, it still lays relatively flat there. Some of you might be thinking it's way too thick. I really don't think so. It's a sporty watch. It's not a dress watch, so yeah, it's not minding the size or the thickness at all. Would it have been really handsome at 38? Sure, but I mean, it's only like 39 and some change, not even quite 39 and a half. So realistically, you know, we're you know, it's just a numbers game at that point. You might feel better if it was a 38, but in all actuality, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the actual difference. So I think this thing is really handsome. I dug it on the bracelets, but I have to say here on the strap, it really does do a very cool job of just making it feel so much more sporty and purposeful within its design aesthetic, versus I'd say the other option on the steel bracelet that comes with the brushed case. It does feel more versatile, I'll say, but also a bit more generic, where I feel this is more of a standout and a bit more signature. So with that said, let's go ahead, get it back off the wrist, laid out for some Lume shots, working some low light transition and closing thought. All right, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, Seiko Lume coming through once again. Very nice. And you know, although there's not a lot of actual area where the Lume is applied, it's still strong Lume, and it's still applied quite well for the small space that it is applied on. Now, with the Lume shots, I do like to work in some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of buildings. Oh yes, look at that light play. Walking underneath overhangs, you know, the enjoying the shade of some trees, or maybe just hanging out, spending time out in your favorite automobile. But we do like to get some mixed lighting situations, less than optimal, even some harsh lighting conditions here. As you can see, very high contrast. Because of its bead blasted, you're going to see that is a very nice consistent finish, and really you're getting an idea of how these colors render, which is really nice because it is a very transitional watch, I'll say. Look at that. You'll see how the numerals really jump out, and honestly, do you really need the numerals? You got the track, it's painted, you can really see, and then you have the Lume plops on that outer track. So I don't mind at all that things can kind of disappear. If anything, it almost helps you focus a little bit more on the bare essentials there. So really, really nice. And you can see that even in mixed lighting, that kind of Admiralty Grey like tone is gorgeous. Loving that. And then of course it does give you a lot more visual interest and light play that you would get from your typical, you know, Hamilton khaki field, or any type of just more traditional and standard sports watch. So very, very nice, very cool. Nice and sporty. It really takes that that field aesthetic and just punches it up a little bit, which I really, really enjoy. So in terms of closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, it wears just about perfectly, very dialed in, and the thickness is not as noticeable as you might think. In terms of model variants, it's also available with a blue dial on bracelets, of course with the black dial on bracelets, and then you can get it in gray, green, or black dial on the standard Seiko NATO strap, and it will have, of course, matching hardware to go with the case finishing there. And then in terms of comparable models, guys, Hamilton khaki series, although those are going to be more expensive, typically if it's a Swatch Group watch, you can find them on gray market for cheaper than your standard retail, so you can get a deal. These ones here, I'd say they're in enough of a demand, you know, and they're under $300 at $275. You're probably not going to get them for too much lower. There will be some sales out there. There will be some options. There will be some eBay vendors. But for me, you know, I chose to purchase this one from Mark and Long Island Watch, just because he's such a pillar within the community, and you know what he has in stock. The nice thing is, you know, it's going to ship, you know where it's shipping from, and you don't have to worry about anything else. So it definitely worked for me in this case. So very, very nice. And another big shout out to Mark. And then bottom line here, guys, this is just another example of Seiko really listening to what people have been asking for, right? Like, we love what we love about Seiko. We're not asking them to reinvent the wheel. We're just asking for a couple of refreshes, add a hacking, hand winding, you know, but still make it something handsome, make it customizable in other ways. You know, they're almost selling now Seiko mods that you can just buy. It used to be there was very few options there, or they were very limited, and then you would just kind of have to make a mod. In this case, you don't have to modify it because you can buy it in really cool, interesting variations. So instead of them having so many watches and so many different models, I think it's nice that they're kind of consolidating down to their classics within the Seiko 5 line and just offering tons of variation on those few shapes and cases. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.